Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Uni 101. I'm Emily and today I'm joined with the lovely Doris who is going to chat to us a bit about her course and what she studies. So Doris, if you'd like to introduce yourself and what you study.
So I'm Doris, I'm 20 and I'm in my second year of elementary.
Is that a bachelor's or are you doing a sandwich year or?
So I want to do a placement year, but it's not looking very hopeful right now, so I'm not really sure about that. But hopefully if I can secure a placement, then I will do a sandwich year as well.
Yeah, I know that people on my course, they've had lots of issues with getting placements as well because of the pandemic, which is a real shame. So first
Yeah,
question.
I mean, it's very busy right now as well.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to find jobs as a student. So yeah, I mean, the obvious first question is why did you choose to study what you're studying?
So I think I was just drawn to this course because I quite like English and I quite like writing essays, and I'm not really good at anything that's like my. So it was between doing English or law, and I just thought that law was a bit more interesting. And now that I'm on the course, I definitely think I did the right choice, because it's definitely a lot more kind of telling of how the world works, and that the way like the legislation kind of like goes hand in hand with everything around the world and everything, and just how different other countries just perceive everything. I think it's really fascinating.
Quite cool. Yeah, it's quite interesting learning about sort of how the justice system works and the different legislation acts that get passed through and how it's relevant. Yeah, sounds pretty cool. So how is your course structured? Is it quite heavily based on exams? Is there a lot of coursework? Do you have any work experience you do? Do you have many lectures?
I think it's very dependent on each module. So typically it's it will be either one coursework or two courseworks, or one coursework and one exam, or just one exam. And I think that really depends on the kind of way that they're assessing it. But I do tend to find that we do have a lot more courseworks or portfolios than we do exams. So this semester I only had one exam and the rest were all courseworks, which personally I prefer because I do better on courseworks than I do on exams. And it tends to be quite content heavy in terms of like lectures, but then when it comes to exams, or when it comes to course like specific about one topic that's not really expanded much in lectures or seminars, and then you kind of have to do your own research. So for example, in European law, in EU law, we had this case and you could choose a question of Mangold, which was not expanded or explained that much in the lectures itself, but it is a very controversial case. It's kind of just like independent research and just finding out by yourself.
Do you enjoy that aspect of it, or do you wish that the lectures would be a bit more in detail?
Um, to be fair, I think it's kind of difficult right now to say because the kind of online lectures are so different to in-person lectures, and I would say that the lecturers are definitely having a hard time to adjust. And because it's all pre-recorded lectures as well, I feel like it depends on the kind of person that you are. I personally don't go from pre-recorded lectures. I prefer more live or in-person lectures, but I know a lot of my peers definitely prefer like pre-recorded lectures because they can watch it as many times as they want, whereas I feel like someone just reading out a PowerPoint presentation doesn't really engage me as much.
Yeah, I feel like that's something similar to all courses. I know people on my course are sort of divided in their preference as well. But yeah, I know law degrees are quite infamous for the amount of reading they give you. Is that true? Do you find that it's a bit overwhelming, all the reading, or do you find it like it's manageable and quite enjoyable?
I think again it depends on the kind of person that you are. I don't typically spend every day reading, but when it does come to the courseworks, I try and focus as much of my reading as I can, and that will mean that sometimes I will have a lot more reading to do in a week than other weeks. But at work, but I know other people definitely try and research a lot further out than what the lecturers give you. So I think it's just about the kind of student that you want to be and the kind of student that you kind of organize yourself to be as. I think it's kind of very difficult right now in the pandemic with online teaching to do all the reading because you're kind of stuck at home. So it's definitely a bit challenging now, but I would say first year I was definitely a lot more active and a lot more engaging with my course.
Yeah, again, I think that can be shared across all different courses. I know a lot of people that have struggled doing research and writing coursework at home as well because they just don't have the motivation. But from your second year and first year, what is your favourite module you've studied and why?
Oh, well, that's a tricky one. I would say, which is quite a controversial answer, I guess, property law. I did it in first semester this year, and I think out of all the modules I've done so far, definitely the most interesting. I'm not really drawn to stuff like criminal or family law, so I do tend to favour more of like the academic and straightforward solving different critiques, because we did have a few modules which are more like philosophy and more about the morality of law and how law is perceived rather than the actual law itself.
Well, it's really interesting. I didn't realise that you looked at sort of the ethics and the variety of the different legislation as well. I always expect law students to say criminal law as their favourite module. I don't know why. It's probably like just stereotype that gets passed around, but
I hated it.
You
Out of all the
hate it?
modules,
Oh no.
I definitely hated criminal the most.
Well, I mean, leading on, I guess you kind of already answered the next one. What is your least favourite module you've studied?
Yeah, it's definitely criminal law personally. That's also because before coming to uni, I did do some work experiences in some firms, and whenever I was with the criminal aspect of it, I didn't really enjoy it as much, and that's just my own personal preference. And I think the misconception is that when you study law, you find out all these interesting cases, and criminal law is probably going to give you the most interesting cases, but I don't think that's what it actually is. I think when it comes to criminal law, it's very techy, and personally, I don't really like the way the legislation is written, especially when it comes to criminal law. So we did look a lot at sexual assault and rape, and I am still very, very against how the current legislation stands, especially for the survivors themselves. So that's why I don't really enjoy criminal law, and I did a coursework on it, on how basically how much I dislike rape legislation, and yeah.
That sounds quite interesting though about like researching into it and learning sort of the ins and outs of the legislation, because I personally have the same opinion as you. I don't like the way that it's structured, but obviously you know a lot more about it than me, so it's probably quite interesting to have that knowledge and to know how it works, but also quite frustrating at the same time. I kind of relate to that. So what is pre-pandemic now? What is a typical day in the life of a law student like?
So in first year, I only had Wednesdays off. So if I did have seminars or lectures, I tried to go to as many as possible. Obviously, not very easy to say because I did miss a few. But I would say I would go to the lectures, do my notes. When I'd come back, I'd try and like either type them up, or when I had time, I'd type them up. And it was a lot more engaging in that sense. When I'd go to the library, I felt like I was really cracking on to my work, and really like I was given the time to do further research, whereas now it's kind of like you spend all day just doing lectures and seminars, and you don't really have the time or the space to do further research and actually engage with the course. So I definitely think that pre-pandemic, my day-to-day was a lot more engaging as a student, and a lot more fascinating in terms of like finding out about the law. But then again, it was first year modules, so it was a lot more kind of laid back and a bit less intense in terms of content wise. It wasn't as well, not, it wasn't as difficult, I would say, since it was kind of like an introduction to the course mostly, before you get into like the nitty-gritty.
So do you overall prefer how it was taught before the pandemic to how it was online? Do you think?
Oh,
What?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what improvements do you think could be made to online learning to make it more engaging for students?
I would say to have live lectures, but obviously that's not very ideal since a lot of lecturers just don't prefer that. And I think it's just also to listen to the peers and to the students. I think it goes a long way when I think at the beginning of one of the modules this semester, one of the students kind of raised their concerns about how the presentations are a bit too wordy, and there's too much information on each slide. And then the lecturers were able to adjust to that to kind of fit how people are learning, which is obviously still very much on a learning curve right now. But I think lecturers would definitely benefit a lot more from listening and understanding where the students are coming from, and that it's not just a personal attack when we do complain about things, because we are just trying to get the most out of our degree as well.
Yeah, it's just constructive criticism. It's like, no offense, just trying to help. But yeah, I know that communication is really important because there are certain people on my course that are thinking that online lectures could become a permanent thing after the pandemic. So I think, there does need to be better communication between lecturers and students if that is going to work properly, because yeah, I relate to you saying it's difficult to engage because it is, especially if you're just in one environment working all the time. But yeah, just to wrap up, final question, what advice would you give to someone who was considering going into a law degree or studying law?
I would say to definitely make sure that first of all you've researched enough about where the law is for you, and to just make sure that you enjoy writing essays and that you have a good structure set out, and that you kind of know how to structure your essays when it comes to and teaching you how to write about the law. So I think it would be very beneficial if you already kind of knew how to structure everything beforehand. And yeah, I think just make the most out of it and just take it easy. I know there are a lot of people on the course who seem like they're doing 100 times better than you, but that's clearly not the case. It's just everybody's obviously gonna talk about their achievements and not about their struggles, and it's so difficult right now, but everybody's in the same boat, so definitely just take it on the chin as well.
Well, I think it's a good place to wrap this up. So thank you so much, Doris, for joining us and for answering my questions. I hope this has been interesting to someone who is perhaps considering studying a law degree, or for someone who just wanted an insight into what it was like. So yeah, thanks for watching.